So I figured it would be fun to just do like some rapid fire questions from an esthetician and med spa director. We'll just start with the first one and see how it goes. So the first one is, what is the one skincare step you never skip, even on vacation? That for me is definitely my, I guess it depends on how you classify steps. I would say my treatment step is what I never skip. And by that I mean like using my retinoid or my azelaic acid. I always keep my azelaic acid and my retinoid going, even when I'm on vacation. Doesn't matter where I'm going. I live in Florida and I use those products every single day. So going on vacation, if I was going somewhere much colder, for example, like the air was going to be really dry, the temperatures are going to be really low, I'd probably, again, still continue both of those. I probably would be a little bit more generous with the moisturizer, if anything. I might use a heavier sunscreen than I would otherwise do. But yeah, I mean, I would say my treatment step, if I had to pick one of those though, it would be the retinoid. I would keep the retinoid going. I never discontinue my retinoids really for any reason other than leading up to a treatment during which retinoid use would be inappropriate. So for example, when I did my ablative laser resurfacing procedure, we combined CO2, fractional CO2 with fractional erbium, and I did go off of my retinoids for a short while before that procedure. That's just standard protocol. Aside from something really specific like that, I wouldn't discontinue my retinoid, whether I was on vacation, whether I was changing my routine even. Like if I'm switching out my moisturizers or I'm switching out like other products, like the retinoid is always going to be there in some way, shape, or form. It might look a little different because I might maybe forego because I do different on Monday and then tretinoin the next day, and then I alternate those. For my face, I use the Naturium Retinaldehyde Cream Serum for my neck on a daily basis. So I would probably keep that going. If anything, I would discontinue the tretinoin and leave the Differin on an every other night basis, and then maybe use the cream serum on face and neck on the off nights when I'm not using the Differin, because the tretinoin is more likely to cause irritation. So if I'm experiencing a little bit of a shift in climate, then it might just be easier to deal with the Differin, which I'm very much acclimated to. I've been using that consistently for years at this point. Tretinoin though Tretinoin is a very powerful product, and so while I can use it consistently multiple times a week, in addition to Differin, alternating, not layering, it definitely still leaves my skin feeling like it's being pushed further than if I were to just use Differin every day, I would say. So for that reason, it might be the one thing that I switch out, but again, like the step is the same. It's just, what does that retinoid look like? So maybe the retinoid is different, but the retinoid step is still there. It never goes away. Oil cleanser versus balm cleanser, 100%. It is less messy. I love a nice oil cleanser. I'm currently using and loving the Dermalogica Pre-Cleanse. I was recently gifted, not by the brand, but by my friend, the Prequel Pre-Cleanse, their oil cleanser. Fantastic product as well. I think that they're really great for at-home use. I wouldn't want to be stuck with an oil cleanser for travel. I would rather have a balm cleanser if I had to pick one, right? If I had to pick one that I could use at home and also during travel, it would be a balm cleanser because it's just more travel friendly. Even when you're at home, an oil cleanser can be messy. It really just depends. And even within oil cleansers, there's a lot of variety. They can be really, really light, or they can be much more rich. And so the experience really does vary. Whereas I think balm cleansers are more consistent in terms of their experience. It just, at least from my perspective, they generally have a similar texture prior to use, and then they tend to break down in the skin in a similar way. And then the good ones, of course, will emulsify and rinse away cleanly. The same is true, of course, for cleansing oils. I do not generally use a first cleanse product that does not emulsify. I don't like needing to use a washcloth or some other tool in order to remove that first layer before going in with my second cleanse. Doesn't mean I never do it, but generally speaking, I would want something to emulsify. And again, I think most balm cleansers nowadays are formulated in that way. They typically have a relatively light texture as a solid, like that, almost like that sherbet. I don't know. They're kind of fluffy almost. Like I like a fluffy. The Physicians Formula matcha balm cleanser is like so old, but like so good. Renee from Gothamista, she put me onto that years ago, and I still absolutely love it. If it was more accessible, it would just be my go-to product for travel. I love the fragrance. I love the skin feel. I love how effective it is. I love the small form factor. Like, it's not a huge product. And the price was always pretty reasonable. But yeah, I mean, if I had to pick just one, and it doesn't necessarily, this question doesn't specifically say if you had to pick just one, but between the two, generally speaking, I would prefer a balm cleanser just for ease of use. I think that an oil cleanser can be more luxurious because there's something, you know, admittedly awkward about breaking down a balm cleanser either in your hands or on your face. But again, I mean, the cleansing oils, they just really great for like a treatment room, I think, but maybe less so for at-home use, and definitely less so during travel. I don't know, it depends. But generally speaking, I would say that a balm cleanser is a much more practical and therefore versatile product. My go-to drugstore retinoid recommendation, different. 100% different. If it's not different, then it's generic adapalene. Walgreens has a version, CVS has a version, La Roche-Posay, they released a version. Whether you're talking about anti-aging or acne, adapalene, 100%. Everything else at the drugstore, the typical drugstore, like for example, the Naturium Retinaldehyde Cream Serum, I think is a fantastic retinoid product. You buy that at Target. It's drugstore in terms of its price, but when you say drugstore, I don't think about Target. I think that Target products can be considered drugstore, but when you say drugstore, I'm thinking like true like pharmacy first, right? Like Walgreens, CVS. What is another drugstore? Yeah. So in the United States, at least, CVS or Walgreens, both of those will carry different, and both of them at this point at least have generic versions of adapalene, and they're all fantastic. They're indistinguishable. I've used all of them. I've used CVS, Walgreens, different. They're all the same. They all deliver the same effect, and they all feel the same on the skin. They all would be layered in the same way. It really doesn't matter. Whichever one is cheapest for you at a given moment, that's the one I would go with. One chemical ingredient I actually love and why it isn't scary. Adapalene. It is a synthetic retinoid. It is not directly related to vitamin A in the way that like tretinoin, for example, is. So that is a chemical in that it doesn't occur naturally. It makes my skin look amazing. So yeah, I actually love that. And it's not scary because it's been FDA approved, and they also thought that it was safe enough for over-the-counter use. You don't even need a prescription. So that is something that I think is very safe and therefore not scary. Although the retinization phase, like that can be a little bit challenging, but it's not scary. The retinoid purge, I think, is a little bit scary for certain people, but if you know what you're doing, or you, have somebody that you can rely on to answer questions, to make recommendations, I think that the retinoid purge is like, it should never be the reason that you don't start one. That's what I'll say. It should never be the reason that you do not start using a retinoid, because it is temporary, first and foremost, whereas your skin is not. Your skin is what you have with you for life. So investing in that with something potent like a retinoid, I think, is very much worth whatever challenges it might present in the beginning. A skincare myth that still makes me roll my eyes, that that any sunscreen could ever be, that you could ever say a little goes a long way with a sunscreen. That is one thing. It's not even, people don't even think it's a myth. It's not even a myth. It's just a misunderstanding. Like, sunscreen by its very nature cannot go a long way. It can be very easily spread across the skin. It can have high spreadability. That is not the same as saying that a little goes a long way, because being able to spread it effectively is fantastic. I think it's important. I do not like sunscreens that do not have good spreadability, but it's not because I think that it's not because I want to get a lot of use out of a small amount of product, because sunscreen doesn't work that way. You have to use the indicated amount in order to get the advertised SPF. There's no way around that. So yeah, I mean, the idea that you can use sunscreen and think that because it's very spreadable and has, very nice and easy application, that you don't need quite as much, and that is simply untrue. If someone's saying this sunscreen goes a long way, I would ask them what they mean by that. And if they say, well, you know, you only need a little bit, I would say, you don't understand how sunscreen works. I actually, when I was at Premier Orlando, I was speaking to a representative about sunscreen, and she was telling me that this XYZ formula, I will not name the brand or the formula, that it is fantastic because it goes a long way. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, you are literally the rep for a brand that is selling a sunscreen, and you are telling me, not your average consumer, you're telling me, a fellow professional, that this sunscreen goes a long way. And that is evidence in and of itself of the profound variety across individuals when it comes to skincare philosophy, when it comes to sheer belief, when it comes to product knowledge, and like just, you know, very foundational understanding. I mean, just, it is factually inaccurate to say that any sunscreen could go a long way. It just doesn't work that way. It just doesn't work that way. But what the myth, however, that I think is much more eye-roll inducing than that is this nonsense about the whole, like, you need to like not wear sunglasses because then your brain doesn't know you're in the sun, and so it can't tell your skin to like put up its defenses. There is this whack-ass woman that goes around saying things, and she has literally been forbidden from like not even practicing because she didn't have a license to practice. She's been like forbidden from like sharing certain kinds of health information publicly by Australia because so much of what she says is so thoroughly inaccurate and dangerous. And she is the first person I ever heard say this, and it's because someone unfortunately in my circle was watching casually, much to my dismay. But she said this. She said that if you wear sunglasses, your brain doesn't know that you're in the sun, and so your skin is left more vulnerable. It does not work that way. It has never worked that way. Absolutely not. Doesn't make any sense. If you understand how the skin works, if you understand how UV rays affect the skin and how they interact with our DNA, how they interact with their skin physiology, and also how the eyeballs work, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. So that makes me roll my eyes, as well as do a bunch of other things that I probably shouldn't say or film. What's next? Morning SPF, physical or chemical, and my favorite formula. I really cannot decide because the application of a chemical sunscreen a good chemical sunscreen is always much more smooth. However, in the United States, unfortunately, if it's between a random chemical sunscreen and a random physical sunscreen or mineral sunscreen, it is much more likely that the mineral sunscreen is going to be comfortable around the eyes. And so for that reason, and also because I am of a lighter skin tone, I am not, I don't have melanin-rich skin, so I'm able to get away with products that maybe leave, a bit of a white cast more easily than other individuals. So honestly, if I had to pick one, and we're talking about the American market, physical sunscreen is probably going to be my preference. It's really just because it won't irritate my eyes. It's less likely to irritate my eyes, and that is literally the only reason. I mean, if eye irritation was not a factor, 100% chemical sunscreen, 100%. And my favorite formula. I don't know. This is very hard. So my preference, if I had to pick, would be mineral sunscreen over chemical as a category. For me specifically, not for the average person necessarily, and certainly not for somebody of a deeper skin tone. However, my favorite formula, all things considered, so finish, protection level, water resistance, texture, price point, the Black Girl Sunscreen Kids SPF 50, 100%. It is the best balance between protection, cosmetic elegance, context flexibility, so it can be used as a standard sunscreen, like just for a normal day, even like a day at the office or a day spent inside, but also is water resistant and therefore suitable for a beach day or a pool day. Very cost effective. So all said, I think it's probably my favorite formula in the United States. Yeah, that's difficult though. Very difficult. How long should you really let a mask sit before rinsing? That just completely depends on the mask. There's no right answer. My secret weapon for calming post-extraction redness. My secret weapon for calming post-extraction redness. I don't think I have one. I don't use something specific to calm the redness. I just make sure the area is clean. If I'm going to use something like a benzoyl peroxide, I'd apply that very conservatively. I think that generally people overuse benzoyl peroxide. And by that I mean like the layer of benzoyl peroxide you're applying is much too thick, or you're using much too much product. I think a very, very thin layer of benzoyl peroxide across the affected area is very effective. Even at very low concentrations, I actually never recommend that somebody use anything other than a 2.5. Certainly no more than a 5%. The data suggests that that's just going to cause more irritation and not necessarily give you any additional benefit. I would do that, like use a treatment product like a 2.5% benzoyl peroxide, very thin layer applied to the area, worked in, not just like dabbed on the skin. I don't do that. Even if I'm using something as a spot treatment, I will actually work it into the area. And then I'll typically let that sit for a little while, and then go in with my moisturizer. And I would say that that's the best thing to do. So if I had to like have, you know, an example extraction routine, I would cleanse my skin thoroughly, definitely a double cleanse, because I never extract things in the morning. It's always in the evening. Although I'm going to say that, so let's remove the timing. Basically, the skin is clean, so you don't need a double cleanse in the morning in order to get your skin clean. The skin is clean, you perform the extraction, and then I would go in with, first I would wipe that area away, but just like, you know, clean, damp hands. I would just make sure that that area is like, there's no exudate, pus, whatever left on the skin. And then I would go in with a very thin layer of benzoyl peroxide, 2.5%. I love the one from Target, the Up and Up 2.5% benzoyl peroxide, fantastic. Very thin layer there. I would let that fully dry down. And then I would re-wet the skin and apply my moisturizer. That's what I would do. Not just to minimize redness, but to like, just to facilitate rapid recovery in general, which includes redness, because the quicker we can tamp down the inflammation associated with that localized infection of sorts, the better. So benzoyl peroxide, I think, in that context is really useful, antimicrobial, keratolytic, somewhat anti-inflammatory. That's what I would do. Oh, I think I skipped one. The worst product claim I've ever seen. I really don't know. I really don't know. I don't know. I've seen a lot of claims around things like right now people are talking about PDRN. People are talking about kinds of things, all kinds of things. Yeah, I really don't know. I really don't know, but whatever. Can you mix AHAs and BHAs, yes or no? Absolutely, and you probably should. They both exfoliate, so they're both keratolytic. They will both assist with texture improvement, lifting pigmentation. In the case of BHAs in particular, maintaining pore clarity. And that's really just because it's able to get into the pore in a way that AHAs simply can't. But on the surface of the skin, AHAs are very effective, as are BHAs, but again, I think that they're, in particular, when you're talking about like glycolic acid, for example, people don't talk about collagen stimulation from BHAs. They talk about collagen stimulation from AHAs. So while BHAs are very effective exfoliants, in particular, when it comes to pore clarity, I think pairing that with an AHA or using like a combination formula or alternating, like whatever that looks like, is going to give you the best results, because you're going to be really effectively targeting the pore while also helping to directly stimulate collagen production, which does so much. So it's not just keeping your pores clear, that's keeping fine lines and wrinkles at bay. I think absolutely they can be used together. How you use them together, however, is the question, I think. Like, do you use them both in the same routine? Do you alternate? Do you use a combination product? That's going to look different person to person, because different people have different levels of tolerance. But yes, absolutely, you can use them together. The ingredient I'd bring to a desert island scenario, that's hard, because I mean, sunscreen is like the thing that I would want to use on a desert island, because I would not want my skin to age the way that it would had I not had the sunscreen. But at the same time, if I didn't have Differin, or adapalene rather, I would be covered in pimples. So no, I think I would say Differin. I would say adapalene, because you could cleanse your skin with water, and you could sun protect by seeking shade and avoiding, because presumably the island has like trees and things. So yeah, actually I would forgo the sunscreen and I would pick adapalene. That's what I would do. It's interesting too that it was ingredient that you would bring, not product. But yeah, adapalene. One quick tip for preventing maskne. First of all, don't layer excessively rich products on the areas of the face that will be covered by the mask. But second, when reasonable, when appropriate, when safe, remove the mask and spray the face with hypochlorous acid. Do not drench the face. A couple light spritzes is all you need, and then do the same on the mask. So spray the mask itself as well as your face, let that fully dry, and then go on about your day. If you will be outside or otherwise exposed to the sun, be sure to reapply your sunscreen as well. The skincare habit I wish everyone would ditch: touching your face. Stop it. If you could only use 3 products for the rest of your life, what are they? Sunscreen, adapalene, and moisturizer. There we go. Well, I hope that was fun. If you learned something new or if you just found this entertaining, feel free to like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you are interested in adapalene or retinoids more broadly and you are not sure where to start, you can download my free Retinoid Readiness guide. I have that linked down below. If you are somebody that just kind of wants a general understanding of what retinoids do, how to choose one, and then a couple tips and tricks for getting started, that's going to be a really great resource. So that is down in the description as well as in the pinned comment. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I would love to answer them. I'd love to just hear your thoughts. I think these questions covered a wide variety of topics, so that was cool. But yeah, send me your questions, send me your thoughts, all of the things. But yeah, I will see you in the next one.